Thank you again. Long day today. And my final guest here today is Sergeant Adrian Sanchez, 18-year veteran of Waterbury PD, neighborhood Southside kid for West Liberty Street. Grew up at the River-Baldwin Rec Center, playing baseball in the boys' league, and great guy, great leader in the community. Thank you for coming to podcast team here today, Adrian.
Thank you for having me.
And, we're going to be here regularly to kind of get the word out to the community, talk about, politics, sports, any new initiatives, education. But this in particular podcast today is going to be centered around get to know the candidates up and close for September primary, here in Waterbury, Connecticut. So, Adrian, September 9th is the primary election for the Republican Party for Alderman by district. You're running in the 5th district with your running partner, Jack Alsop, against Efrain Torres III. Adrian, a lot of times in politics, people go and they vote based on people who tell them how to vote, or they vote party line because they don't know any better. They don't do their research. I thought it was a great opportunity for me to exploit introducing candidates up and close, up in front, to get to know, who's Adrian Sanchez? How did you get here? How did your journey get you to where you are today? What school did you go to? Brothers and sisters, family dynamics, now how it was in the past, aunts and uncles, and basically, how did this journey get you to run for office? So start with a little bit about your background, where you grew up, where you went to school, and your family dynamics, and some of your ideology, and who Adrian really is as a person.
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me. So again, my journey started here in Waterbury, down in the South End. Grew up down there, especially during a time when it was a lot of gangs and violence in the area. It was at its peak when I was a kid. And, I didn't let what was going on around me to define me as a person. I chose to do better and to be better. I involved myself in programs over at the South End Rec Center, where you were the director of, all the basketball leagues with Coach Willie White, and made a lot of friends down there. God bless him, rest in peace. Yep. So that kept me out of trouble a lot as a youth. I played baseball, whether it be with a pal, and for school as well. I went to Westside Middle School, played basketball there, and then once I graduated there, I went over to Sacred Heart. You came to a few of my games when I used to play basketball over at Sacred Heart. I played a lot of AAU basketball in the summers. We went all over the place with Coach Bo from the North End Rec. So, I grew up at the South End Rec, but I played for the North End Rec because at the time the South End Rec didn't have any AAU. Matter of fact, they took all of us from the South End Rec, all the Spanish kids, and they said, yo, come over.
Yeah.
So we had a nice little bomb squad for the North End Rec. Coach Bo held that down. Coach Studio also. Yeah. Studio Vargas was a part of that. We went all over the place, man. We went to Florida. It really opened up our eyes to the talents out there, that we could play against. So I ended up going to Sacred Heart for 2 years, sophomore year. I played ball there, but then again, I decided it wasn't really for me. So I transferred over to Kennedy High School, where I finished out my junior and senior year playing basketball as well. Once I left there, I graduated in 2005. Then I got into UConn, the university right downtown. I was about 2 years into that. I was pretty much working somewhat full-time over at Waterbury Hospital.
Waterbury Hospital, yeah.
As a security guard, and I was DJing on the side, doing side gigs on the weekends. Eventually, by the time I turned 21, or just before I turned 21, I took the police test. I just had a conversation with a friend who was also a security guard at Waterbury Hospital, and he's the one that, told me, hey, I'm going to be taking the police test. Why don't you take it with me? I guess he just wanted the comfort of somebody working out with him and getting ready for the test. So I said, yeah, why not? I was working third shift at Waterbury Hospital. I just had my first child, Trinity. So I was a 20-year-old father in college and DJing on the weekends. I had no idea what I wanted to aspire to be at that point in time. I didn't know where I wanted to go. I was thinking military, in college, didn't really know what my major was. I was falling off in my studies because of the work and the DJing. And then I take the police test at 20. I end up turning 21 in August. 3 months later, I get a phone call. Hey, by the way, great job, you passed. Why don't you come in for the next steps? A few months down the line, in that November of 2008, I get the phone call, hey, come join the police department.
Mhm.
So, and the irony to that is that I became a police officer, and my friend who actually talked me into taking the test with him did not.
Wow.
So now this is where I am. I've been a cop since I was 21. I'm currently 38 years old now. I retire in 2033, which be a full 25 years service to the city. By the time I retire, I would have been a police officer longer than what I lived not being a police officer, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So I basically grew up on this job as a teen. Think about it. I just became
An adult.
legal enough to drink alcohol, and now I got to be a cop.
Yeah.
So throughout my life, throughout my tenure here, I've made my little mistakes, as a young individual, young man would do. But again, I never let that define me. I let it make me better,
Mm-hmm.
Now I have 5 kids, and I'm married, just got recently married last year. Yesterday was my anniversary.
Congratulations.
Hello,
bro.
Natasha, love you, baby. So basically been an officer for 18 years now, a sergeant for the past 3 years, and I'm in this community. I'm out there, I'm speaking with families, I'm speaking with the youth, I'm in our neighborhoods. So I know the struggles of our neighborhoods, but I also know the potentials of the folks in our neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm the only child. I was basically raised by those around me. And to be honest, you have a large part in that as well. All the conversations we had throughout the years, I believe if I was to throw out an age of when I first met you, I want to say around 8 years old, maybe, when I went to the rec center for like
Little
camps,
guy.
like summer camps,
Yeah.
when I first met you.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, and I became more of a man, our relationship got even stronger because now we can have those conversations. I did have a 2-parent household, but I had more of a relationship with you because you would spit the realness to me.
Right.
The parents would more or less try to downplay certain things because they don't want you to see their struggles and what they went through, in essence, but you would spit your real struggle.
Right.
So I would be able to have more an understanding of how to deal with certain things. So yeah, with you along others as well, that's how I just pretty much grew up, and this is where I am today as a person.
Yeah. So, it's interesting you say that. And, that's for another show. I got to have you
Yeah.
back on. I'm actually in the process of writing a book. I wrote one book already of a bad experience I had in life, but I'm going to write another book. And my next book is called Street Father.
Mm.
And the reason I gave it that name is because, I had the privilege, and God blessed me with the privilege of being in the lives of, think about it. You're like probably, so I can count probably 30,000 plus kids that come through my life and Abby's one of probably the older ones, and Abby's almost 50. So Abby's in his 40s, and he's like my son, right? I consider you a son, and I've had the privilege of having tens of thousands of kids like you, and I call you guys kids, but you guys are grown adults, and I want to tell that story, and I want you guys to be part of that story, about those conversations we've had, about those conversations that I came down on you guys like a dad, and made sure that you changed some things in your life, and also taught you that failure does never define us. Failure is part of human ascension, and failure is how we learn. And you guys all learned that, and you've taken that to another level, and I appreciate that. But, Adrian, there's some things you just said, and, you serving in the community, growing up in the community, you're still doing it. You're visible. Visibility is an integral part of leadership. And your ability to be in the community, and has nothing to do with politics, has to do with your job. As a police officer over the last few years, what I've seen more and more in you is how you stop the vehicle, you get out of the car, and, you come down to the baseball field and you walk amongst the people. You sit there, have a hot dog with them and talk and have normal conversations. That's so important, and you don't do it because that's not in your job description. You make that your job description, is to build bridges, to build relationships, right? To hear the people's voices. And now the fact that you're bringing it into the political realm is only fitting, right? So I can certainly tell you that going into this election, and the reason I brought you on and all the others is to know the people that you're voting for. Just don't vote for a party line. Know the people. Forget about Democrats and Republicans. Know the people. When you know somebody that you're voting for, you really know them, right? It helps you feel some gratification, and it helps you connect with some of your beliefs because you know that person, and you know you can pick up the phone and call that person, have a real conversation. I'm going to tell you, in national politics, people vote because they're party line, and they have a glimpse of the individual that's running for politics on TV because they're running ads or stuff like that. In local politics, most people that votes for certain people for mayor, Democrats, Republican or Democratic mayors or aldermen, they vote for people because they belong to a party. And I try to tell people, I get it, we have to pick a team, right? But this kind of venue has to be more of, because now we're getting into the age of social media. It's really being exploited, and it's an opportunity for us to go on air and say, hey, this is Adrian Sanchez. He's running for the 5th District. He's on the Republican side. And right now, September 9th, we need Republicans to get out and vote. And Adrian lives in the South End of Waterbury, grew up in the South End of Waterbury. Adrian wins this primary election. He gets to November. Now he's going to run for the general election against a Democrat. At the end of the day, when it's all over, what do we have? We don't have a party. We have an individual who's going to sit in that chair downtown and make decisions that affect us in a lot of different ways, man. And people need to know the person, and that person has to be accessible. And I got to tell you, I got to call a spade what it is. I seen this administration, the people who are in there right now, some of the people on the board of Alderman right now, unfortunately, they're not accessible. They're not accessible, and you have to be accessible. So, Adrian, I have to say this to you. You talked a little bit about, what drives you, what drove you to this, like, and just kind of summarizing. We don't have to get into specifics, but summarize, like, what drove you to get into politics, right? And I know, and I know some of it.
Yeah.
And I know that I had some part to do in that because I gave you my advice, right?
Yeah.
And I know that what I talk to you, it means a lot. But what drove you to say, it's time, I got to be able to contribute positively and productively at a different level in my town to have certain people's voices heard?
Okay. Well, there was a buildup of a few things that happened. It wasn't just that one flash of light that said, hey, let me get into politics. It's a buildup, right? So the properties on West Liberty Street where I live, my grandparents owned those for years, over 30 plus years. They're all paid off and everything. Mm-hmm. And, they're at their peak ages right now. Well, rest in peace to my grandmother. My grandfather, who's still around, ended up putting the properties under my name, due to his age and health. So now that I'm running the properties and every 6 months I'm getting these, tax bills from the city, I'm noticed that they're going up and up compared to what they were, previously. So I'm asking myself, why are taxes keep going up and up? I have to start jacking up the rent on my residents. And if this is happening to me, and if it's happening here to them, I know it's happening all over the city.
Absolutely.
So that's one thing right there, right? Mm-hmm. Secondly is my job. I don't want to get too into detail with these things, but, I've been passed up on positions that I know for sure my resume speaks for itself, that I was very highly qualified to be appointed in certain positions, to hold leadership positions, being a sergeant. I was overlooked, not even given an interview for certain positions, and it was given away to other individuals. Come to later find out that, they have some type of family connection or political ties to somewhere within the city government. That right there also further sparked my drive into saying, well, you know what, this isn't fair. What's going on here? What else can I do? Furthermore, I mean, I have friends and people that I know who also work within the city, not necessarily the police department. They tell me their experience and what goes on in their departments, how they're treated unfairly, how they're not provided the same overtime opportunities as others. And those others also whose family, you know, with well-known last names are the ones that keep getting hooked up with positions, supervising positions, keep getting promotions, so on and so forth. And it's like, wow, you know, there's a lot of nepotism and favoritism that seems to be going around. Mm-hmm. I felt the brunt of it, and I know others that are feeling that as well. So again, that's what pretty much are the building blocks of what sparked my interest. We eventually somehow came together. We had a nice conversation one day. I don't remember where or what we were doing, but, you know, after I explained to you several of these things, you know, you provided me an option of how to go about it. It was explained to me what the Board of Aldermen is. My entire life, I never knew what the Board of Aldermen was. For 30 plus years, never knew. I would hear it, I would see it, I wouldn't give two craps about it because I didn't care. Yeah. I didn't know who my aldermen were. Just like you said, like they're not personal because they're never around. Never knew anything about an alderman until I started watching Dawn Mayorano and Steve Pepperesnick, right? Their Facebooks. And what that did for me was it just enlightened me into what this city government has been truly about for the past several years. The backdoor deals that's been going on, the nepotism, the favoritism that not only I've experienced, but they literally shed light on. They really brought, you know, the saying, what's done in the dark comes to light. Yeah. Well, they brought a whole lot of light into those shadows because they've been exposed. Right. Dawn and Steve have exposed a lot within our city government that, by the way, a lot of us already kind of knew about in a sense, but nobody really reports or speaks up on. Well, so many officers that I've worked with always say, oh, yeah, like, did you see this? Did you see that? Yeah. Did you hear about this? Did you hear about that? But nobody ever speaks up on it because they're afraid of retaliation. Right. All city employees don't really try to come to the forefront because of retaliation. Mm-hmm. So after seeing this, after hearing that, hey, the Board of Aldermen is kind of a gateway in to starting to have a say, you know, starting to have more influence, not only, you know, within the people around me, within my job and a professional, but also within my community, you know. I look at my kids. I have 5 kids. They're all in the public school system. The public school system isn't all that great. They're not fully funded the way they should be. They're overlooked in many ways, right? You know, contracts that are going out are benefiting others in higher positions, and they're not really truly focusing on those that they're supposed to focus on, the kids, the family, you know, the programs and things like that. So this is all fuel to my fire, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. And, you know, that's what's making me, you know, take this new role and fight for it. Yeah, no, that's, you know, it's interesting that you know, you've pinpointed exactly what's driven you to where you're at and why you're doing this. And, you know, it's not so much anger, right? It's what's right. It's what's right. And you know, you also made a point of emphasis that, you know, what Steve and Dawn have done is not necessarily innuendos. They're actually providing validity with facts, documentation. So people are watching now the show and they're saying, wow, right? And other people were chiming in and saying, I knew that, but I never said anything because I couldn't prove it, but now it's being proven. Mm-hmm. So, you know, a lot of those things are happening, and it's good. Shows like that are important to the community. What you're about to embark on as a leader is going to be phenomenal to the people in the South End and the 5th District, period, because unlike before, I don't think they've ever had somebody who's such embedded into the community, being on the streets as a police officer as you. You're actually out there working and hearing and seeing it all, where I don't think there's nobody across the board. I mean, listen, DG Vincarlo's a police officer, but he's not on the streets. I mean, he's got a cushy job downtown, doing the meter stuff. He's sitting at a desk. He's the Board of Aldermen. He's a state rep.
He's not on the street. You're on the street. I mean, kudos to you too, by the way. I read about you chasing somebody, getting a gun from somebody a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
At the courthouse. You know, how many guys that are supervisors are going to get out the car and chase somebody and take a gun? I mean, you're putting your life at risk for people, so kudos to you. People should know that Adrian Sanchez is just not a cop because he wears a badge. He's a cop because you breathe that work, and that's what you've been doing. But Adrian Sanchez is a human being who wants to want Waterbury to do better and wants to be part of the process of making it better, right?
Absolutely.
And I have to tell you, Adrian, that what you need to do, as I told Cito and Abigail and all the guys and girls who were here today, is educate the people. The people do not understand that, you know, when we get to November, they can vote any way they want. Everybody belongs to a party, right? I'm a Yankee fan. I went to Fenway a few weeks ago when they were playing. You know, you can do that. You can go, you can vote the other way. You can visit the other person's home. It's okay. During this time of election, everybody, you know, it's a little tussle between both the Democrats and Republicans, and even the Republicans and Republicans. More importantly, I think people need to know, what do you have in the 5th District? You have a guy who's been there his whole life, and then you have Efren Torres, who, in all honesty, we don't really know him. I don't know him, only for what Steve has exploited on the show, that, you know, he doesn't live where he lives and stuff and things like that. I don't know the kid, right?
Yep.
And he's the only person running besides that in the 5th.
Yeah, that's it.
Just him.
One person.
Right. So we really don't know who the kid is. But, you know, listen, kudos to him for running, because it takes a lot to run, right?
Yeah.
And Jack Elsef, who is your running mate, you know, he's been serving, and Jack's been.
Oh, he's a great person.
He's been trying to fight and fight that fight alone in the Board of Aldermen. But Adrian, you know, I want to tell you that, you know, I want to first say congratulations, you know, to your anniversary the other day. But I want to also say I am privileged to and be proud to stand by you the day that you get inaugurated into the position of Alderman, because you're going to win. And you're going to have an opportunity to really make a difference and work across the aisle. And, you know, I could see you coming out of the 5th. I could see Jack coming out of the 5th. And I could see Nelson Roman coming out of the 5th. And if that happens, the 5th is going to be well represented. So, again, I want to thank you for coming out today.
Appreciate it.
September 9th, you know, if you could have one last word to tell your constituency out there, what would you say to them about September 9th? How important is it?
I can't stress enough how important it is. September 9th is the primary. It's in my district. It's myself, Jack Alsef, against Efren Torres. You know, not too many people know much about this Efren kid.
Yeah.
One thing I could tell you, again, I was born and raised in this community. I lived every layer of Waterbury. I know its ins and outs for the most part. I know every side street, even if it's not my district. And again, my roots run deep here, you know, and it's something that I'm very passionate about at this point in time. And it's not only because of my personal, you know, interactions that I had, whether they were negative or not. I want to make things positive for my constituents, right? I want them to have the best experience of what the city has to offer. You know, I always feel like Waterbury is just on this stale line for so many years, and I feel like it could just if it just had that push, you know, we could finally, you know, get over that hump, right, and become the city that I know we could be, you know. Yeah. Again, I don't have any personal interests involved here. I don't have any 501c. You can't, you know, buy my votes on this board of aldermen.
Right.
You know, it's been, you know, shown and proven that other aldermen, especially on the Republican side, you know, they're already devoted to the Democrats. I mean, that's their. I want to get up there and I want to have help Jack Alsef if I can.
Yeah.
You know, I've watched a lot of alderman meetings and I see that this man speaks up and he tries to do his best, but he doesn't have the full backing of his fellow Republican colleagues on that board.
Right.
So pretty much his vote, you know, goes stale. You know,
right.
So I want to get up there. I want to try to help. I want to try to push policies that actually make sense. You know, let's vote for, you know, taxes that make sense. You know, let's give full support to our schools, to our Board of Education, and overall, let's just be fair.
Yeah.
Let's just be fair to our citizens and ourselves, and let's just give opportunities, you know. Let's just, you know, try to get more youth programs out here. When I was a kid, I felt like there was a lot of things to do. You know, I drive around now and there's nothing for kids to do. I get it. In the summertime, you have the pools and things like that. But other than that, I mean, outside of really PAL, there's really not much going on. You know, I feel like, you know, the youth programs have been neglected. In the
We can't forget about my Little League Day.
Well, no, yeah, you do have your Little League. Kudos to you. And that's growing every year. You know, my little one's involved in that, you know. But like I said, the more the better. You know? So I'm just here. I'm trying to do the best for Waterbury again. I'm not about rubber stamping agendas for anybody, Democrats, Republicans. I'm not about the rubber stamp, to be honest with you.
Well, listen. Let me just close real quick for you about one thing that people need to understand. The mayor's office is a separate entity to the Board of Alderman, and the mayor's office cannot control the Board of Alderman.
Of course, and
unfortunately, that's not the case right now.
No.
And so I just want the people to know out there that this is two governing bodies. Think about the Board of Aldermen, the mayor's office. The Board of Aldermen is supposed to have checks and balances to the mayor's agenda. And what you will learn in your journey as an elected official is that not all democratic ideas are bad. Some you would vote sometimes with the Democrats.
Absolutely.
And that's okay. We're not promoting people to go on the Board of Aldermen and vote no all the time.
Of course.
You have to do your due diligence and be cognizant of what you're voting for to ensure that what you vote for, yes, how will it affect the people, my next door neighbor? And that's not happening. So to your point, I appreciate everything you said. Get out September 9th, vote row A. Adrian Sanchez, Jack Alsop, row A, September 9th. Biggest election ever in Waterbury. I look for everybody to come out. The numbers are not going to be extraordinarily high, but, you know, I'm going to keep optimistic, and hopefully that we get over 200 votes. I would love to see that.
Let's see.
The win numbers around 180, but I think we can get over 200 if people get out and vote. Thank you very much, and thank you, Adrian.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you out here.
Absolutely.